There is continued fighting happening in Israel-Palestine. I actually don't know if you can say fighting is a sufficient enough term. It feels like it's something else entirely. We could talk about that as we go along here, but Gaza is getting absolutely obliterated by Israel, and you have some of the images and videos that are coming out of there are absolutely gut-wrenching. So the big thing that happened 2 or 3 days ago is that Israel bombed a media building to the ground. So they claim, oh, it's because Hamas is in there. Now, one of the media outlets was in this building, doesn't exist anymore, so we can't say is in the building, was in the building, was the Associated Press, and the Associated Press released a statement that said, we've been in this building for 15 years, there's no Hamas in there, we would never put our people in any kind of danger or jeopardy, and so Israel better show whatever their evidence is right now, because it looks like you just bombed a media building because you wanted to bomb a media building, perhaps because you don't like the critical coverage of Israel that's coming out from these media buildings. So you have the Associated Press is one of the outlets in there. You had Al Jazeera is another one of the outlets in there. So what you're going to see here is the owner of the building was in contact with the IDF and was basically begging, hey, don't bomb the building yet. At least let my guys go in there and get their cameras and get their recording equipment. And you can see he's begging. He's already at the point where he's given up hope to have them not bomb the building. He's like, okay, I get it. You're going to bomb the building. Just give us 10 minutes. And, you know, the IDF person on the other end of the line is basically like, no, we've already given you an hour. Nobody goes back in that building. We're bombing it now. And then you're going to see what happens.
تسأل المسؤول ونقول له احنا يعني 10 دقائق ما حيصير شيء بين الساعة 3 والساعة 3 و10 العمارة مش حترجع تاني خلاص يعني احنا بدنا 4 تنفار بس 4 وكلهم لابسين الدروع مش حيروحوا يجيبوا أجهزة قتالية ولا حيجيبوا كاميراتهم وشغلهم هذول كانوا في بث مباشر يعني هاي تو كلهم هاي نشوفهم تو رجعوا كانوا كلهم في المستشفى في مكان وين قتلوا ال10 أنفار امبارح في المجزرة هذول كلهم هيك الناس الجاية ما في حدا منهم مخرب إذا أعطينا 10 دقائق ساور المسؤول قول له يعني 10 دقائق ما حيصير شيء. تفضل. كانوا جايين يدخلوا العمارة ولا واحد صاروا على الناس. إحنا محترمين رأيكم يا عمي إحنا ما بنقول لكم بدنا نيجي غصب عنكم. أعطينا 10 دقائق. لا اخوي ليش 10 دقائق القريب احنا صار لنا ساعه نفس الناس بدنا انه الناس يرجعوا للعماره للبرج خطر من شانهم مش من شاني هذا حياتهم مش حياتي بقول احنا الا نتجادل معك الا 10 دقائق لو في ال10 دقائق سمحت لنا نروح كان راحوا جابوا الاجهزه تاعتهم ورجعوا يعني احنا مش باكين على الجهاز خلاص انت بدك تسويه احنا يعني تعب عمرنا كله راح باتنا ذكرياتنا حياتنا ضيعتوها بدك تتكلم لهالوقت على كاميرا ما بدي احكي على كاميرا خلاص ما بدي اللي بدك اسويه انا حسكر واعمل اللي بدك اياه في رب كبير تفضل يا ابا صل على النبي اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد لقيت في ناس بالبرج ولا لا ما في ناس لا ما في ناس لا ما في ناس لا
في عملية مسح ورصد تجري في هذه الآن غارات متتالية تزلزل من جديد انهار البرج.
It's hard to believe anything the IDF says at all because they've lied every step of the way. So let me give you some more information here. Another thing that they did is they bombed the roads that lead to Al-Shifa Hospital. And in that bombing, they killed 33 in the process, including 8 children. They also targeted a Doctors Without Borders clinic. So that's more. We also know that Gaza's top neurologist, Dr. Moen Al-Alul, was killed. The head of coronavirus response at Gaza's biggest hospital, Dr. Ayman Abu Aluf, he was killed. A psychologist and social worker, Raja Abu Al-Uf, as well as her children. She was killed. So the new numbers that we're getting are terrible, and the targets are mostly civilian targets. So also last night at about 1 a.m., bombs were raining down on a residential area. This was all over Twitter in real time as it was happening. So the death toll from that attack is now 42, including 10 children and 16 women. 50 more were wounded. You have 2 prominent doctors were among the dead. And the total death toll now in Gaza since Israel started bombing last Monday is now 192 people, including 58 children and 34 women. And more than 1,200 people have been injured. Now, you might be thinking, well, what are the casualties like on the other side of this? And the answer is 10. A total of 10 people have been killed on the Israeli side. I don't know the breakdown. I know there were at least 2 civilians, but it was 10 people. I don't know who the other 8 were. I don't know if they were IDF people. I don't know if they were civilians. But you have 10 deaths to 192, including 58 children and 34 women. So there are more than 5 times, almost 6 times the number of children died in Gaza as the total number of people died in Israel. And again, more than 1,200 have been injured. So, well, now you might be asking yourself, well, what the hell is going on with the U.S. response? Unfortunately, the answer is disastrous. Biden has been in regular contact with Bibi Netanyahu. Biden has made a point of never calling for even a ceasefire. There are, I believe, just over 20 Democratic senators who are now calling for a ceasefire, led by John Ossoff, among a few others. Biden didn't even call for a ceasefire, and in fact, we got the news. This is just after we got the news that Israel was bombing a residential area in Gaza and killing civilians. Biden approved $735 million more in weapon sales to Israel. So, after we already knew, hey, this is mostly civilian targets, this is hospitals, this is roads leading to the hospital, doctors are dying, children are dying. Biden's response to that is, okay, they want more weapons. I'm going to send them $735 million more in weapons. The United States has also blocked 3 attempts from the UN. 3 attempts from the UN to bring about a ceasefire and stop the carnage. So that is currently where we are. In fact, early on, when there were the first calls for a ceasefire were happening, the response from the Israeli government was basically, we're not interested in that. So they're admitting, hey, we are bombing, it is aggressive, it is offensive, and we're going to keep doing it, and we're not interested in a ceasefire. Now, throughout this entire ordeal, one of the things you hear all the time, in fact, it's the go-to, regurgitated, thoughtless platitude that American officials spew out and that Israeli officials vomit out. It's, Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. Well, very clearly, if you're bombing hospitals, if you're killing doctors, if you're killing women and children, if you're bombing residential areas, you're not defending yourself. And I'll go a step further. Israel always has Iron Dome, which I'm not kidding about this. It sounds like this is hyperbolic because sounds almost too good to be true, right? But 90% of Hamas's shitty rockets get knocked out of the sky instantaneously because of Iron Dome. Iron Dome is a missile defense system that as soon as it detects an enemy missile incoming, it fires into gear and it intercepts it and it blows it up in midair. That's probably the main reason why casualties are so insanely low on the Israeli side. So If Israel says, hey, we have a right to defend ourselves, the response is, you have Iron Dome. You are already defending yourself. So all of the bombing missions in Gaza, where you're killing civilians at an incredibly high clip, all of that is illegal. And it's war crimes. And it's you going on the offense. Every nation now, except the U.S. and Israel, is saying, whoa, come on now. You got to pump your brakes. You got to do a ceasefire. You got to stop this bombing mission. Look at all the civilian casualties. You hit hospitals. They don't care. And they're going to keep going. And then, of course, the most obnoxious and annoying part of it all is that they play the victim as they do it. God, nothing's more annoying than that. And the Israeli government does it so much it's laughable, and the U.S. feeds right into it. Always playing the victim even as they're massacring civilians relentlessly. That's what's happening. Now, listen, this perhaps is the unpopular thing to say in some circles. I can't imagine why. But what's Occam's razor if a government bombs a media building? What's Occam's razor? What's the most likely explanation as to why a government would bomb a media building? Very simple. They don't want that reporting to continue. They don't want those facts to keep coming out. That's Occam's razor. That's Occam's razor. And again, the AP themselves, who are in the building, said, there's no Hamas here. There's no Hamas here. So they wanted the reporting coming out of Gaza on what they're doing to stop. In the same way that you had a Palestinian go on some mainstream media networks in the U.S., on CNN and MSNBC, he told the truth about Israel. He was asked if he condemns violent rioting from Palestinians, and his response was, do you condemn them trying to kick me and my family out of our homes illegally against international law? He told the truth, and then the next day, he was dragged out of his neighborhood by the IDF. And somebody said they grabbed one of his sisters or something. The same way that the IDF responded to that, that's how they're responding to the media telling the truth on this. They just bombed the building. And the head of the AP came out and said, this sets us back. Thankfully, our people are okay, but now they need to set up shop somewhere else, I think at the AFP building. And it's going to take longer, and now we're behind, and we can't get all the facts out there. That's why Israel did it. That's why Israel did it. They bombed the media building because they wanted to bomb the media building. They wanted to limit their capacity to get the truth out there. That's why they did it. And I can't imagine anybody being surprised by that, but some people will be surprised by that. But the fact of the matter is, shouldn't be a surprise when you also see this incredibly high rate of civilian deaths. Because again, they don't care. It's not like every time's a whoopsie. They don't care. You think they accidentally bombed the Doctors Without Borders clinic? You think they accidentally bombed the roads leading to the main hospital? You think that was an accident? I have a bridge to sell you if you think that's an accident. So anyway, listen, don't get it twisted. These are war crimes on top of war crimes on top of war crimes. And the U.S. is showing how complicit it is in ethnic cleansing. Because that's what's happening. It was a slow motion ethnic cleansing, and now they sped it up a little bit. So this rips the mask off of all the fucking stupid rhetoric of we believe in democracy and freedom and human rights, and that's what us and our allies push for. No, it's not. No, it's not. I wish I had a positive thing to end this segment with, but I don't.